Hey gang, what's good? It's Wes. So in this video, we're going to talk about something that comes up a lot in the comments section of my videos. Now, as we all know, I have way too many art programs, and you might be in the same boat, or you might be like dedicated to one art program and you kind of want to make the jump to another program. I know a lot in the comments we see people making the jump from something like Photoshop over to a, Clip Studio Paint or ArtRage, Rebelle, Krita, that type of thing, right? So I thought what would be neat, and this was actually requested by quite a few people, how do I go from one painting program to another? Literally, I think right now I have 9 painting programs installed. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I want to go over a few of the heavy hitters and kind of show you my one main trick that I use going from one program to another program as easily and kind of as naturally as possible, because every program is going to be slightly different in the way that it's made, where kind of the options are, the way the brush engines work, that type of thing. So how do you keep track of kind of where you're at? If you jump from Photoshop to Krita, what does that leap look like? And the main way that we're going to do this is through the layout of the software. It's a great way to kind of learn your way around a new piece of software, is setting it up to mimic your older piece of software. It might seem strange, but we're going to jump into like 4 or 5 different paint programs, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. So without further ado, let's get to it. So yes, going between different art programs can be a little tricky. It can be a little daunting, but the main thing that I wanted to talk about is really the thing that helped me the most to get to terms with each painting program separately was actually making them be as identical as possible, at least as far as the layout is concerned. So I did want to preface this in the kind of the bigger webcam right now and say that we're just going to be focusing on Windows. I mean, this is going to work for Mac and Linux, and if you have that stuff as well. But what I'm not going to talk about really is mobile. So like iPad and Android art stuff, because I don't change those settings. With mobile art, it's a little bit different. So I want to learn each program as its own thing. I know that sounds weird, but like I don't mess with Procreate settings really. I might do like a hotkey thing to where you set up the pop-out menu to where if you hold down like 2 or 3 fingers, then like the little radio menu comes out, and I might put some shortcuts on that. But I don't change the layout of the UI or anything. I want to, like, whenever I'm in a mental space of using mobile art, I want to use the functionality that's built in there. I don't want to try to mess with that too much. So I don't try to make, Infinite Painter feel like Procreate or whatever. They actually do a pretty good job of doing that anyway. Procreate seemed to like set the standard on some of the UI and stuff. So from what I've found, at least, and I haven't used a ton of mobile pieces or mobile pieces of software, but they kind of mimic Procreate. You know what I mean? Touch gestures and things like that. So we're not going to talk about the mobile side of it because, like I said, I don't mess with those options too much. I just try to learn it as it is. But with these desktop deals, all those UIs can be drastically different. And it can be a big learning curve trying to figure out where certain folders are, or options, or filters, or brushes, or tool options, or whatever. That can be kind of a grind. And I will say part of the fun of learning a new program is figuring out where stuff is and how it functions. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to go into probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 different pieces of software. And I'm going to show you how I have it laid out, including what windows I have open, where they're at. Do you drag and drop them? Like, where are they set up? So this may be helpful for you, especially if you start with a main program and you want to learn another program. Maybe try this out. Try setting it up to mimic the thing you're already used to. It sounds obvious, but you'd be amazed at how quickly you can make the jump from program to program whenever everything is kind of in the same place. You know what I mean? So let's start over here. We're going to hop over to this where we can see each paint program. I'm going to have my webcam in the corner. I might hide it every now and then just so you can see the full screen and kind of what it looks like. We're going to go over what the menus are, why I have things set up a certain way, and then go and just hop between the programs so you can kind of see exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, let's kick on over to it. All right. Hey, slightly different camera angle, right? Okay, so we are in Photoshop CS6. This is my main kind of workhorse. And it's funny because, I mean, I've used Photoshop since Photoshop 5? Not CS5, but like Photoshop 5. This was circa, oh man, I think the first time I used Photoshop was 1999. 2000, something like that. Not even knowing what it was, right? But so I've been kind of familiar with it ever since. So whenever I go to any new paint program, this is kind of what I mimic. Okay. So this is my control. If we want to talk about having all these different options and stuff, this is the one that's kind of the backbone. This is what we set everything else up on. And I want to give you a quick tour of how this is set up. That way, whenever we jump to a different program, you can see what I mean by having it mimic another program. So this, I think this layout is actually called Wes 1. I think I name all of them Wes 1 whenever I save them. This is basically, if you're in Photoshop, even the newest versions have this. If you go to Window and Workspace, you're going to see all of these different deals like painting, photography, typography. The newer versions are going to have even more stuff for like graphic design, I think. But with here, we have like the essentials, which is your default. And you can see mine's kind of, it's essentially the same as kind of the essentials, but like painting has their own thing, and see how it changes kind of what's available and what windows are available. Mine, we're over here, you're going to see we have the brush presets, right? And all of these, by the way, if you come and look over here, they're going to be under this window tab. So where we had window workspace, and this is kind of where you can save your keyboard shortcuts, all that stuff, but also the layout. All of these other separate windows and separate categories are going to be available under window and here. This is going to be pretty similar across all the different programs. It might be called something different, but we'll take a look at that. So you're going to see we have brush presets, which are going to be right here, right? So down here, you're going to see we have tools, which are going to be right here as well. So your tool presets. Now kind of a walkthrough on Photoshop. Brush presets, if you have a specific brush you have, this is going to be just the actual brush tips. But tool presets, like right here, I don't have any tool presets for the brush engine. So tool presets used to be, back in the day, the way that you would save the brush tip, the opacity, the blending settings, all in one tool, right? It would package it together in like a little package, kind of how Krita does it today. But in CS6, moving forward from CS6 onward, there's not actually a lot of tool presets. You can use them, and I have them, especially for the mixer brush, but a lot of that stuff is built in just to the regular brushes now. It saves your opacity, your jitter, your flow, all that stuff. It used to not be that way, which is why you would have a tool preset which combined them all together. But we have all that, so I have my brushes and my tools right next to each other. So let's say I went over to the mixer brush tool, I hit M for the mixer brush, and you'll see that, you know, the brush categories didn't change. But if I come over to tool presets, now I have all these like perfect oil brushes that are blendy and smooth and weird and, you know, that type of thing. So it's a slightly different setup, but essentially all this to say, all of my brushes, whether it's a mixer brush, the tool presets, anything that I'm going to be painting onto the canvas with is going to be on this left-hand side. This is where I always go. I'm, you know, if I'm arting, you know, doing blah, 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 painting, I always come here and select my brushes. So yes, anything brush oriented and tool preset oriented, I have right here. Also, you'll see this menu over here. This is where I can go between categories. So like gradients, my smudge tools, the mixer brushes, like polygonal lasso tool, my selection tools, movement tools, vector stuff, pins, all of that, any text that I do, all of this is going to be right here, which is pretty standard, right? But everything like that is on the left-hand side. If I'm selecting something to alter what is on the canvas itself, it's probably on my left, all right? Now, coming over to my right-hand side, what I like to do a lot, especially because I work a lot in card games and also like board games and things like that, to where my art is going to be viewed smaller, I always like to keep what's called a navigator or a preview window of what I have on my canvas at a small size on my upper right corner, okay? So I have this right here. That way I can zoom in and out, I can do all that and see how it kind of changes as I'm like moving around and moving through the canvas and stuff. I can see where I'm at all the time. And I can see the entire composition without having to constantly like zoom out, let me look, zoom back in, zoom back out, let me go in, put 2 paint strokes, let me zoom back out. At a quick glance, I can see the whole composition all the time, which is very important for kind of that balance of visual fidelity, clarity, things like that. Because whenever your artwork gets printed really small, you need to make sure that it reads well. It has to read well at a tiny, for like Magic the Gathering, Varia, any of these other card games I'm doing, your artwork has to be seen at like 2 inches by like 1.5 inches high. So I want a smaller window to make sure that all that works okay. So you'll see that I have that. I can also have some other sub-menu things up here. Not every paint program, ironically enough, has a navigator tool. So otherwise, I will put something like sliders, like color sliders, or you can see here like color swatches. I might put something like that up here too, and kind of anchor them into each other. So in order to do that on Photoshop, you can see, since we have these open right here, you have your options, your tools, any extensions and stuff like that we have. But what you can do is, let's say this color window was just like open right here and floating around. I would take it, drag it, and like dock it. I would put it in the dock here, and that way it becomes its own tab to where I can kind of tab through what I need. But more often than not, I just have the navigator tool open all the time. Now I have my color wheel. So this is an extension. You probably saw it here. I went to Window, Extensions. Coolerus is a really great one for Photoshop, just because you can do, you can do your monochromatic colors. You can do all your different color schemes. And as you are working, and I usually use split complementary, that seems to be my go-to, it will always keep track of kind of where I'm at on the color wheel, but also it'll lock in certain recipes or certain formulas. That way I can use them quickly without having to think much about it, right? So yeah, very, very cool. But really, I just keep my color wheel here, whether it's a cube, it's the triangle, whether it's the hue, saturation, value stuff. I try to keep it right here in the middle of the right-hand side. So underneath the navigator, underneath any of like the swatches and stuff like that, I keep my main deal for color right there in the middle on the right-hand side. And then under that, I might have some other stuff like a mixer tool or color sliders, kind of to, if it's related to color. I know I have the swatches up here because that's also kind of related to color. So all my color stuff is right here. You know what I mean? But like I said, I usually have that navigator up. But then we have the color wheel. Then we have this stuff right here. But then most importantly, and this is actually most importantly, I have my layers panel on the lower right, always. Doesn't matter what paint program I'm using. Lower right has to be the layers. It has to be, because my mind just works that way. Now, whatever works for you, if you're kind of locked in a certain way and you really like it on the left-hand side or the upper side or whatever, please keep it that way. But this is the point of this. Keep it locked in. Keep this stuff consistent throughout all of it, because this is going to make learning a new art program way easier, because you're not going to have to search around for everything after you initially get it set up. So yes, this is my layout. Let me go ahead and hide my webcam real quick. So this is it, right? This is the setup. This is what I use to mimic on all of the other painting programs. Okay. So we're going to hop on over to the next one, and we're going to have all these time-stamped, by the way. I'm going to move over to the one that is the most requested. Whenever I use this next program, people in the comments are like, why does your program look different from mine? And that is ArtRage Vitae. We're going to jump into it, and I'm going to show you how I have it set up. But what's funny is we're going to have this right here, and then I'm just going to fade into ArtRage Vitae, and you're going to see how similar that setup is. Okay, so I'll catch you over there in just a second. And we're here. We are here, pardon me, on ArtRage Vitae. Let me zoom out a little bit. So, multiple things are happening right now, okay? I have this set up, and we're going to look at the layout here in just a second. But the main thing that I want to show you on the desktop version of ArtRage Vitae, this is not applicable for the mobile version. So your mobile version, I believe, unless they've done an update lately, cannot do this next part. But a desktop version of ArtRage Vitae can do this. So you might have an ArtRage Vitae that looks like this. Whenever you first open it, you might have some windows open and kind of all the stuff is everywhere, right? Like, oh my gosh, what is happening? You have the, you have your art. Let me hide my webcam so we can see everything. Okay. So you're going to have this little radio menu down here. You're going to have like your color samples, your color wheel. Everything's going to be kind of set up like this. You're probably going to have it a little more clear than I do. But I want to show you, these are the panels that I have open on the other layout. Okay. So like here's color, here's samples. We have our like tool samples, our layers panel. All of this stuff is open, but it looks like this. So how did I have it looking kind of more like Photoshop? So under View, if you go to Interface mode, the first thing I did is turned on Lights Out mode. This turned everything from white panels to darker panels. The reason why I did this, for me, it is easier to check values if everything is grayed out, even the layout. That way the whites pop, the yellows pop, everything gets brighter. Since it's not pitch black on the layout, I can actually test my values at a glance faster, because in relation to everything else, is it darker than this, lights out mode? Then that means it's my shadows. If it's lighter, it can be lighter midtones. It could be highlights, all that stuff, right? So it's a little kind of helpful thing, but also I just think it looks better, to be fair with you. I just think this looks better. So now we're here again, right? We still have all the stuff like weird and floaty. So what I did is on View, Interface mode, go to Docking mode. And this allows you to dock things. So if I go to View, let's do like a tool preset. Every time I open a new window, you'll see that it opens up kind of as its own window in the middle of the program, right? But with docking mode activated, if I drag this over to any side, usually it pops up. Okay, there we go. That's kind of a hard thing to do without without seeing it. You can feel it. If you go to the edge of the panel, and this will actually be easier if you have one monitor, but I have 3 monitors, so this is a little bit trickier. If you drag it to any of the sides, so the left side or the right side, it will dock itself. So you can see the presets right here. This one just went in the middle, right? So if I click this middle button right here to undock it again, we can try it over here now. So I'm going to just move this window over here, and you see that it docks right here. Now, let me check something. Okay, it does. Depending on the angle that you dock this at, it changes the order in which it's docked, okay? So if I wanted my presets, let's see, to be like under my settings, I would come down here, I would drag it underneath. See, with this one, it's, okay, yes. I would drag it underneath to the very edge right here where you kind of see this scroll bar. But since it's hidden, it's hard to get sometimes. But I would drag it under everything, and then it would be here at the bottom. So if I undock it again, and let's say I wanted this up at the top over the toolbox, I bet I could come over here. Yes, perfect. So it does based on your gesture, okay? So we have that, boop. And let me just go ahead and close that. So anytime, all of your stuff is gonna be right here, right? So your custom colors, your stencils, sticker sheets, toolbox panel. Now you're probably gonna be like, oh, I see these settings right here, but where are your brushes? So my brushes are actually saved under the toolbox. So I have a toolbox, which is essentially, I'm glad they named it that because it makes sense. I essentially have a list of deals, Wes Oil Paint Toolbox right here, .artbox. So this is something that only ArtRage uses, but think of it like the brush presets or the tool presets that we saw in Photoshop. If I have that file and I hit open, and let me bring it over here. If I have this file and I hit open, all of my brushes load in the order that I kind of drag and drop them on. So you can save to a toolbox from your preset menu. So all of your presets are going to be right here. And as you can see, as I click through my presets, you're going to see what the differences are between these. It's either going to be the brush tip or the amount of grain or loading or opacity. Any of the, like if it's a certain type of brush, like wet oil paint, it's going to be here. So all of these can be saved into a toolbox. But once again, if we take a look at where Photoshop was, how we have our brushes and maybe our tool presets right here, if we click over to ArtRage, now we have our brushes and our tool presets. Do you see what I'm saying? So all of the things for the brushes and changing them and all that stuff is going to be on the left-hand side, just like Photoshop. Going to be exactly the same. Even if it works differently, even though this says toolbox, this says settings, everything's going to be right here. So that way, if I'm hopping between ArtRage and Photoshop, well, at least I know my brushes are on the left. Then I have my canvas here in the middle, just like Photoshop. Let me, zoom to scroll wheel to zoom is open on both of them. Then once again, look, we have color swatches. We have my color window and my color picker right here. And then my layers panel. That is exactly the same as if I had this. My color swatches, my color wheel, and then my layers panel. It's identical. This is super, 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 super valuable because now I'm not jumping around, oh God, where did I put this and where did that go? And imagine just having a desk full of stuff that you can't find anything. You're like, oh God, well, I knew I had this thing somewhere, but where is it? No. Part of the great thing about opening the new program for the first time is setting it up to be like your old program. That sounds funny and like, why in the world would you do that? But trust me, when you're in the groove, when you're in the flow of making artwork, the last thing you want is to be like, oh crap, I need this certain tool, I need this certain function, I need this certain thing. Now I have to get out of creativity mode and go into like, click that, no, that's not it. Click this, no, that's not right. Click over here, where's this, what's that, what's this say? No, you don't want to break that flow that you have going. And this also teaches you about what your art program has. So in order to set up all of this, and in order for me to figure out what was docking mode and what's lights out mode and what's a toolbox and what's all these things that are native to ArtRage, I needed to try setting it up like Photoshop. Okay, where would my quote unquote brush panel be? Oh, it's called the toolbox, and this is where I can save my brushes. Cool, okay. Oh, and here are the brush settings, and I have them, and this is where I adjust everything. Here's my layers like normal. Here's my color wheel like normal. So all of this stuff has more in common than it doesn't, but you're going to notice that different art programs name things a different thing, right? So the next one we're going to jump into is going to be the second most requested one. ArtRage Vitae is by far the most like, hey, why does your ArtRage look like that? Mine doesn't look like that. So hopefully this helps you with that. But this next one is the second most requested, which is Krita. And this one's a little bit different in the fact that, one, I wrote a book about Krita, so I really had to dive into the nitty gritty, but it has some really nice, neat features that I want to show you to kind of make that experience a little better and more approachable whenever you get into it. So this was ArtRage Vitae. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, but like I said, this is for the desktop version of it. And yeah, and then we're going to hop onto Krita, and we're going to take a look and see how that is laid out and how we can mimic Photoshop to the best of our abilities. So we will be right back. All right, we are now in Krita. So like I said in the ArtRage section, this is the second most requested software that whenever I bring it up and I open it up, people are like, oh, wow, how did you get your Krita set up that way? We're going to take a look at that, but I want you to see, can you already see some of the similarities? So we already went through Photoshop. We already went through ArtRage. Can you see the similarities? I have my brush stuff on the left. I have my layers and my navigator and all that stuff on the right with the colors. That's basically it. This one is a little bit different though, and I want to discuss some of these differences. That way it can help you out whenever you're trying to find things, okay? So once again, I'm gonna hide my webcam. That way you kind of get the full glimpse and the full view of what we're gonna be looking at. So, boop, there we go. So this one's a little bit different. I kind of go back and forth on how I have Krita set up. I like this setup quite a bit, simply because this is essentially the same thing. I have my tools panel right down here. I have my actual brush presets right here, which is going to be the same thing as your brush categories. As you click down and you can kind of come here. So like some of my custom brushes that I've made that I'm still kind of testing out and things like that, we got right here. But you know, if I'm going to the RGBA or the Meme Leo brushes, or like I've been using the Klume's Dirty Dry Paint brushes, which are great. Charcoal, sketches, yeah, the texture brushes, pixel art, just standard painting, digital painting. We have a favorites list right here, which is kind of my categorical go-tos that I always use. Everything's right here, okay? You can also categorize by tags. You can do all that, but tags is basically another version of category, okay? But you know, be that as it may, we can do a whole walkthrough of Krita in a whole separate video. But just know my brushes and the presets are on the upper left, just like they are in Photoshop, just like they are in ArtRage Vitae. Now, what's this, right? Oh, your color swatches are right here and your color wheel is right here. Why aren't they over here with, you know, the other color wheel like you would have here? And why are your tool options over here? And like your specific color selector. So this is kind of like your sliders, right? And you can change, excuse me, you can change your category right here. How do you want to see it? Do you want to see hue, saturation, value? Do you want to see RGB? All that's going to be right here. But like, why are your tool options right here instead of over here? And why, and yeah, well, why is that? Because I mean, the navigator's here. It's called overview instead of navigator. Why is this over here? So that's a great question. This, for whatever reason, whenever I'm docking the artistic color selector, and you can see, once again, Krita is pretty great about this. So in that same way that we had the docking mode for Photoshop and we have the docking mode for ArtRage, Krita has built-in docking mode. This is just how it works now. Ever since like Krita 3, I think, and we're on Krita 5, 4 or 5. Wait, hold on. Help. About Krita. We are on Krita 5. Okay, 5.2.2. We are here. So in the past few versions, Krita has really embraced the idea of the docking mode. So whenever you have your category window, you can have this right here. You can find all of these under your window, or actually it's going to be under settings. So there's one change. Instead of going to window and where all of your windows are, like your other two programs, you know, like your Photoshop, like your ArtRage Vitae, these are going to be under settings. And then we have show dockers, which is what these are. These are all of our docks. Your dockers, this is where all of your stuff lives. Dockers, advanced color selector, which is right here. You have, let's see, your artistic color artistic color selector right there. Brush presets, which are right there, right? Your layers panel, overview, palette, specific color selector, tool options, toolbox. So you have all of these things, but this is where you can bring it. Let's say you wanted to add, oh, I really want something, the digital color mixer. I really want that one. So you go ahead and click it, and it's going to add it at the end of your docking order, which means it's probably going to be on your lower right-hand side. But if you just grab the category right here, you can then put it kind of wherever you want, okay? So this is what I do. I try my best to come in here to get the things that I need, like your brush presets, your overview, the layers panel, all of the heavy hitters, and then I dock it in the same order, okay? So not much else to talk about on this, but I did want to point out that this is under the settings window under your dockers. Also, you can do themes. So I use the Krita Darker theme because it is the closest to my eye visually as the Photoshop and the dark mode in ArtRage Vitae, right? It is a little bit darker, but you know, it's pretty similar. It's not a drastic shift in the visual clarity of where things are. So it is the darker mode. So if I went to this, like a Krita Dark, so maybe this might actually be exactly the same as the Photoshop. So yeah, kind of that same off gray color. Man, these Krita people are smart, man. So you have something like this. So if you prefer that, to me on this monitor, this one, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just the way the icons are or there's just more real estate that's taking up more stuff, but I actually like it a little bit darker. That might also just be because I'm used to it. I've been so used to doing this in Krita with this dark, like slightly darker. But yeah, change it to however you think looks or feels the best. And it's doable. It's totally doable. You can kind of get all of this stuff set up exactly the same way, even if the program itself might be drastically different. So this is the Krita version. Like I said, everything's under settings. Go under Dockers. Make sure Show Dockers is active, because if it's not, you got this and you're like, oh no, where did all my stuff go? Go to Settings, Show Dockers. It's all there. And then whenever you have that, basically, you can have your toolbars shown, which is actually like up here. Settings, toolbars shown. Yeah, brushes and stuff. That's what these are right here. This window. But you can do this. This natively saves your configuration. As soon as you make a change, it saves it automatically. You can go to reset all settings. But then you can do things like add an author profile to add metadata to all your images. There's a lot you can do in Krita. Like I said, we could do a whole video. In fact, I wrote a whole book about setting up this stuff and using Krita in your main workflow. But yeah, if you have questions about this, let me know. We're going to hop over to our next one. Let me show my webcam real quick. We're going to hop over to the next one, which is going to be another very popular program, and for very good reason. That is going to be Clip Studio Paint. So let's hop on over to it. Once again, you're going to see it's kind of set up exactly the same way, but we'll do the quick walkthrough of it. That way you can kind of see how it's similar and how it might be slightly different. Let's take a look. And we are here. Welcome to Clip Studio Paint. I wonder, can you see any similarities? It's set up exactly the same way. Here, let me hide my webcam again. That way we can get a full view. Yeah, this should look familiar by now. So once again, all of my brush stuff, whether it's the brush categories or kind of the tool panels and all that stuff, that's going to be on my left-hand side. Then all the tool properties are going to be right underneath that. So as I change these brushes right here, let's say my brush categories right here, I have all of this, right? So I got that, and then over here, boo, boo, boo. Cool. We have all of the properties right here. Then I'm going to have like brush size. I actually don't need this one. I usually use my bracket keys, like bracket open and bracket close on my keyboard to go up and down on brush size. I really don't mess with that too much, but this is the tool settings, the more direct tool settings. So that way I can do like if there's texture density or particle density, brush density, if there's like wet blending on like, if I come into, let's do like boom. Yeah. Amount of paint, density of paint, the color stretching, all of those type of properties, the anti-aliasing, depending on the category, those are going to be different, but all of it will be here under the tool property window. Then I have my brush size, but yeah, I don't really use this one a lot. I might actually undock it. So, I can actually come over here, and if I drag it out, you're going to see that I can just keep it separate. And then as I drag it over, if I put it like in between these two, you see where it's turning red right here, and I let go, it's going to dock it right there. So I'm going to grab the category, drag it out, and then I can kind of move this wherever I need to. But really, I can just exit out because I don't use that one very much. I think I had it open while I was working on one of my magic paintings. And then color history, we have the history of all the colors that I chose. That way, if I need to go back to an exact one and I don't want to color pick from the painting, I can come back here because as I use it, let's say I come over here to like a bright red. Let me get this. Let me open it real big, put this down here. Now it adds it down here. So I can just go kind of in order as I use them. But then we go on the right hand side. This one should look real familiar. Overview right here. Then my color wheel. Then my color slider. Then my layers panel. All exactly the same thing. Basically with Photoshop, if we have that, remember brush categories right here. We have our color swatches or our navigator. We have our color wheel. We have our layers panel. Same thing here. Even going back and forth, if you look at this, we're in Photoshop, clip. Even the width of some of these are about the same. Now with clip, there are so many different options that you can use, especially like 3D and stuff. I have those set up right here in an expandable window, right? And this is the material 3D, but also all of these material color patterns, backgrounds, the ones that I kind of use the most here. And from what I do this, there's a command bar, the tool properties, my color history, layer properties, navigator, always show the tabs on the canvas. So we have all of this. I have this saved as illustration. My workspace is essentially the default workspace. And then I think these were actually kind of on by default. And I just moved it over to this side panel, right? So if I come over here, Material 3D, but then I add it back over here, these little subcategories, I can dock them all kind of right here, okay? So Clip does have a very powerful docking system, and I find it's very, very valuable, but I usually hide these type of things. That way, if I do need it, I can be like, oh, I need a 3D cube, or a 3D sphere. I'm going to grab this, I'm going to drag it onto my deal, and that way I can start working, you know, on my 3D stuff. That way it's its own layer. I can do, I can trace, I can find my shadows, I can do all that stuff. If need be, it adds it here on the layers menu. That's how I got it all set up, right? So essentially the Clip version of my layout is basically Photoshop plus. So I have all my Photoshop layout stuff plus additional things that Clip Studio has. I find that to be very valuable because once again, push comes to shove, I just open up the program. It's set up nearly identical to Photoshop. If all I need to do is paint and I don't need the 3D stuff, I don't need that stuff, I keep it hidden. That way I'm just using it just like it would be Photoshop. But then if I do need to bring in a character, bring in something 3D, bring in a material, bring in a texture, I can open up these side panels right here very quickly, drag them in, you know, and then, so all three, both of these are on the same plane. That's weird. But you see what I mean? Like I can drag and drop it really fast. Let me go ahead and get rid of, delete. Cool. Get rid of those. So yes, this is Clip Studio Paint. Everything, of course, is going to be under the window. So you can see how in Krita, it was called settings, and then you go under Dockers and all this stuff. But with Photoshop and with ArtRage, they're under window. And all of your tools, your color sets, your intermediate color, all of this stuff is going to be right here, okay? So, yes, but your file, your edit, so stuff like transform tools, going to be under like transform. All of these are built into the UIs. The nice thing about painting programs, especially nowadays, let me open this up. They kind of understand that Photoshop is the industry standard. Even in my opinion, I don't find that to be the case as much anymore. Now, a lot of companies still have Adobe as like a license. They have Adobe Premiere, they have After Effects, because an Illustrator and all that stuff. Because each department, if it's a creative house or if it's some sort of like production company, they may use on their pipeline something similar. And with Adobe Bridge, you can like throw stuff from Photoshop directly over to, you know, Illustrator or, you know, After Effects without altering the stuff. And if you save your file, it updates live on their file. It's pretty powerful, to be fair. But as far as like pure painting is concerned and like digital art and stuff, there's no real standard anymore because, I mean, I'm using Krita to make the Magic the Gathering cards. I've used Rebelle on Star Wars. I've used, you know what I mean? Like you can use kind of whatever on whatever as long as it can save in a certain file type. Now, the shared file type across all these is going to be a Photoshop file, .psd, because in the big industry standards, Adobe is still kind of king. Which is also why I got used to Photoshop first for that very reason. I wanted to learn the industry standard, but now I'm making all of my other programs fit that same look of an industry standard. Does that make sense? Like that was the goal. I want to learn these new programs very, very quickly. And I want to do that by mimicking what I already have known, right? It's going to make that learning curve way easier. And then it's going to teach me about each individual program because the differences are going to stick out more. Oh, this is here and it's called this instead of this and this. If I have a baseline to compare it to, I find that it makes my learning much faster because I'm not trying to learn everything. I'm not trying to drink from a fire hose. All I'm worried about is the differences instead of what is all the same. Like, well, who cares? If it's all set up the same, you don't have to think about it. But if you see something that's slightly different, you can learn that quickly, right? You can learn one or two differences way faster than you can try to, well, okay, let me memorize all of this all in one fell swoop. That's just not realistic, and it's not fair to yourself. So make it easier on yourself and do this. We got a few more to run through. I think I'm going to run through like Paintstorm Studio. We got Rebelle, of course. Yeah, let's do a few more. Let's kind of just take a look, see what we got. So yeah, this one's Clip Studio Paint, another amazing program. All of these are fantastic. There's no one right way to do it, but just know that it is possible within all of these different pieces of art software to set it up the way that you need. So let's hop on over to our next program and give that one a shout. And here we are in Rebelle. My Rebelle has been kind of set up the same way since like Rebelle 4. I've been a beta tester since Rebelle 4. So it's been nice to be able to kind of make sure that all of my docking stuff and the way that I have this set up kind of carries over from one to one. Rebelle's been, and Escape Motions, the company that makes Rebelle, have been really great about making sure that whatever changes you make to the UI kind of transfer from one version to the next without too much hassle. I think I've had to add a few docs here and there, but other than that, it's been smooth sailing. But yes, once again, I wonder, can you notice how similar this looks? So the layout for Rebelle is different than a Photoshop or an ArtRage or Krita or all that stuff, but you're going to see all of my stuff is in essentially the same exact place. So once again, I'm going to hide my webcam so we can get a full look at this. Boop. All right. So yeah, here you go. You got your middle section, which is of course going to be your canvas. You have your tools panel, which is essentially your brush engine. It's going to be right here. So we have our express oils, oils and acrylics, our watercolors. So all of our categories are going to be right here. Then you actually see this is set up in a slightly different order. Normally I would have my brushes up here, and then the actual, the changes and the properties, the tool properties as they were, right down here. So this is going to be your actual brush category menu, and this is going to be the settings for each individual brush. But there's a reason why I have this set up kind of in reverse. See, they're still on the left-hand side, which is the real important thing. All my brush settings are going to be on the left-hand side. But because of how powerful Rebelle's brush engine is, I want to make sure that I can change any of these options at any time. So I can up the oiliness, I can do that. But really, the main mamma jamma, the thing I use in Rebelle the most, are these actual paint engine changes. So you can do just standard painting, which is your opaque painting. Let me bring this right here. So if we have this, let me go ahead. I have I have this right here. Cool. That's under paint. But then let's say I want to do a paint and mix. Let me do that category right there. And then let me bring my pen up. And then it kind of mixes in there. See? Then if I wanted to do a paint and blend, it's a little more wet, a little more smeary. But you can see how it's like dragging a little more. And then this one is just going to be a blender brush, so it doesn't make a new mark, but what it does is it kind of pulls, and you can kind of use that as a blender tool. You see that? And then, of course, you can do the same thing as an eraser and use that same brush tip as an eraser. I use these categories and these like different brush engine optimizations more than any other feature in the program. Because I love to be like, okay, I need this color, but I need this kind of introduced here. Let me introduce that. Kind of a nice hunter green. Let me get that in there. Let me add it a little bit more opaque. I'm going to bring this in, make that a little darker, but then I need to blend them together. This is how I use Rebelle. I love the brush engine so much that I play around with these blending modes more than anything else. So that's why my brush settings are actually above the brush categories. I don't change brushes as much in Rebelle. I find one and I paint for a while with it. Then I'll come in and like, okay, well now I need, let me come over here. Let me do that one. And then, or, you know, let me actually get like a flat brush. And then once again, I'll come over here and I have this cool setup. Yep. I'm going to change that color. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to paint and blend. So it kind of smears those together. I'm going to get the blending, but you see what I mean? I'll go from brush to brush, but then before I switch categories too often, I'll really just change the color and the way the brushes mingle together. That's kind of why I have this set up right here. And then over on the right hand side, you can absolutely see that I have the navigator. I can still zoom in and out. Boop, 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 boop. Same way. I have my time-lapse recording set up here. So I do actually, I don't get paid by them, but I do work with Rebelle a lot. We do featured videos. We do stuff like that. So I want to make sure that I can give them the quote-unquote Rebelle time-lapse, which is a built-in time-lapse feature, kind of like a Procreate or even like Krita and Clip have it now. Where you just kind of record it. It makes a nice clean recording without any of the UI. It's just the canvas and you can see the painting kind of come to life. It's great for commercials. It's great for that type of thing. So I have that here. But then my colors, the same thing. I have my color wheel. I have my color library, the swatches, the sliders, all of that stuff right here. And then of course my layers here at the bottom. Yeah, this is all going to be under Window. All of these are going to be here. Volume presets, brush creator, visual settings, record time lapse. All of this is under here. You can also go into tablet mode. You can lock your panels. You can import a layout. You can export a layout. This is actually what I do. I export my layout before a new version of Rebelle comes out. So let's say we're going from Rebelle 7 here to Rebelle 8. I would export my layout just in case. It does a very good job of transferring everything automatically, like going into your user settings and keeping those. It kind of knows what you like. So then whenever you get that newer version in, it takes all your hotkeys, takes all that stuff and imports them in. However, for whatever reason, if that doesn't work, you always have this export layout and import layout to fall back on. So like on Rebelle 7, I would export my layout, save it as Rebelle layout or whatever. Then once I open Rebelle 8, I would come import layout and all of my stuff should come in docked. The windows are the same, even if they might be named something different, but it's the same. So let's say this goes from tools to like toolbox, for instance, right? If we want to talk about like ArtRage, the category on the internal side is going to be the same. So even if the name changed, it would still bring up the correct thing that you're used to. Does that make sense? Because the program is going to be smart enough to know what you meant. Even if they call it something different, they're going to know the thing that you had open, which is great. Like I said, I love Escape Motions. I've been a beta tester with them for a long time. Great stuff. They're very, very smart, very knowledgeable. They know what people want for the ease of use stuff, right? So yeah, this is the setup. And once again, let's say I open a window. Let me go to, let me do preview. Where did I go? Oh yeah, it's over on one of my other monitors. But well, yeah, so here I have basically the same thing as the navigator tool, but this allows me to resize. And that way, if I'm painting and I see this right here, you see it's not showing up live, but the moment I pick up the mouse or I pick up my pen, it's going to show the same way as the navigator tool. This one is just a little bit different as far as like it gives you more customization. If you want to record your own time lapse, let's say you don't want to use this record time lapse function, but you just wanted a clean canvas that shows mark by mark what you're doing, you could throw this on another monitor and then you could record this monitor. Do you see what I'm saying? And that way you have essentially your time lapse. See what I mean? See how it's showing like dot by dot by dot as it shows up. So something like that. Then you can bring this over and see how things are going to kind of move around. You can either add it to a window or you can, so like, let's say I wanted to add the preview to my Express Oils window. Now we have preview properties, preview, properties, preview. So if I want to move that again, I have preview. I'm going to click, drag it out. Oh, actually, let me do this. I think it might be under maximize. No, fit to screen, close. How did I undock it before? Oh, here we go. Okay, yes. So I bring up this menu right here, bring this down. I want to say, there you go. There way you can undock it from there. I guess you have to get the category head in order to do that. But you can see how I'm just changing these around, something like that. That's cool. I can even add it to, oh, funny. Might have to expand that one. And then if I grab this, then I can add it to this window. That way they are together. Do you see what I mean? To make that category. So let me come over here. Let me bring that out, move the preview out. Boom, boom. Fit to screen, there you go, maximize. So there's some fun stuff, right? Close it. Then if I need to come back over, so you can see now that it's closed here. But if I reopen it, boom, preview. It's exactly where I left it off. Got it right there. Reset brush changes. Preview. Properties. So we have everything we need kind of right there, right? It collapses down, expands the panels. Bam, got everything you need. Cool. All right. So got everything there. Yeah, this one's a lot of fun. There is differences, but of course you can make it exactly where you need it. Also for these tools panels, this is the brush categories essentially, but you're also going to find your selection tools, your color picker, cropping, transform, everything like that is part of the tools menu. So it's not that I wanted to put all of these here. It's just these connect to this. Like the tools window is just the tools window. But this is the best way to quickly go between brush category types. And then you can have your actual brush menu right down here. So yes, that is Rebelle. Let me bring up the webcam. Boom. Yeah, that's Rebelle. So I think we have just a few more. I think we have a Paintstorm Studio, and then I think there's one other one. What other one are we going to look at? We are going to look at Photoshop, Clip, Paint Studio, Corel Painter. Yeah. Sketchbook, they don't make anymore, so we're not, well, Corel Painter, they don't make anymore either. But but that's going to be one of those things that, yeah, we'll kind of take a look at that. But yeah, let's hop on over to our next piece of software. And you can see, let me open up Photoshop. Boom. So once again, brushes, preview, color, layers, brushes, preview, color, layers. You see the trend. Okay, we're going to hop over to the next one. We'll see you then. Boom, here we are in Paintstorm Studio, kind of a hidden gem, in my opinion, as far as digital painting programs are concerned. But once again, let me hide my webcam. Boom. Notice anything? It's set up exactly the same way. So yes, we have our kind of main, of course, painting area right here in the middle. You have your brushes right here under the categories. You have your tool window right here. You have your brush, kind of your brush settings are going to be right here. All of these are going to be under these categories. Then you have your navigator. You have your color picker, color window, color wheel, whatever you want to call it, your sliders, and then your layers. That's it. Like, this is, and all of these are going to be under your view tab. So you're going to view your tool options and your brush options and your layer panel and your navigator. And let's say I bring up the mixer, which I really love this mixer, by the way. This mixer is great. It's really, really good. Let me come over here. So you can ignore hide panels. There's a lot of little different settings in Paintstorm Studio that you might want to go in and play around with. But Yeah, pick area and picker mode. So you can like do cool blending and all that stuff here. And then you use kind of the color picker. And then you can pick what you need. Very, very cool, very fun. There's also, I want to say, reset colors, reset scale. There is a way. Clear mixer. Thought there was a way to do. Oh yeah, your background's right here. There is a way to bring in different presets, but I can't remember how to do that right now. But yeah, we have all of our filters. We have different reference panels, all that stuff. All of this is going to be here. You can even do something like flip your view. The quick deal for your canvas right here. So all of these are going to be fairly similar, but you might see one or two specific changes between each one. And like we talked about, it's way easier to remember the differences than it is to try to learn everything from scratch all over again. So this is why I try my best to mimic what I have here with Photoshop. I try to mimic Photoshop in all of my other painting programs. So yeah, it's okay, so this is one of the things with Paintstorm Studio. It's a little different as far as I might just have to close it this way. So this, if I unselect this, it's going to hide that way. I have noticed with Paintstorm, it hasn't had updates in quite a while. There's sometimes that some of these windows will get hung up and things like that. It's a little clunky, but once you get it kind of saved, once you get it how you want it, if you come over to Workspace, you can save your different workspaces. You can save your different keyboard presets and all that stuff. Yeah, it's all here. So you can even do like your different grids. You have your different rulers. You have all this type of stuff that are available to you very, very quickly. But yeah, it's all going to be here. Your panels toggle. So your different panels, and that way it's kind of a hotkey list of all of these that are going to be here. So if I like click this, we'll see. So, some of them aren't responding, but still that's fine. Let me do that. Yes. So color libraries, color swatches. So if we do like color swatches, cool. And I want this, and what I'm going to do is I am going to, wow. Yeah. See, very weird on how some of them are responding and some of them aren't. Normally you can drag and drop these over, but for whatever reason, this is arguing with me right now, which is one of the reasons why I don't use Paintstorm Studio as much anymore. It's still amazing. The brush engine is freaking phenomenal. Love, love, love it. But, yeah, very, very cool. As far as that. However, some of this just doesn't respond quite as smoothly as other stuff does nowadays. And, you know, whenever you're kind of in that ebb and flow of the creative process, you don't want to be fighting with the UI and stuff. But at a certain point, I was able to set up this UI to kind of lock into where I have my brushes, my brush tools, or like tool properties and presets and all that stuff. Then my navigator, my color window, and my layers panel exactly the same way as I have my Photoshop. So once again, jumping back and forth, not hard at all. It's something that's pretty easy to do once you get it set out. But like I said, every program does have a slightly different way to go about it, or slightly different terminology on what they call certain things. So I think we have like one more. We can look into Corel Painter, which is kind of the big mamma jamma. But once again, we'll kind of look at it. We'll kind of show you what that looks like and how it compares to our control of Photoshop. All right, so now we are in Corel Painter 2023. Now, something I want to talk about. They don't make Corel Painter anymore. It is kind of done. There's been no updates. There's been no news. There's been no mention of nothing in over 2.5 years from Corel. So for all intents and purposes, Corel Painter is dead. It's just a dead program. That doesn't mean it's not still very, very good. It's one of my least used programs because it is very clunky and very bloated, as you're going to kind of see as we're navigating around. So this is my version of the Photoshop setup within Corel Painter. Now, something to keep in mind, I kind of set this as I open this up to record this part of the video. All of my dock windows were actually on another monitor, and I had to drag them back over. That happens every time I open Corel, and there's no way to change that. It never opens up like this. It always opens up to where this is like way over here, off monitor. I have to always drag and drop stuff, even if you can see where it's supposed to dock and dock. That doesn't always save. It doesn't, even if I have the same, even if I have like my layout saved, to where if I come and go to workspace, if I go to import and export, if it's set up to default, it doesn't normally save where my dock locations are, which is annoying. So for the first, 2 or 3 minutes that I open up Corel Painter, I have to wait for the brush engine to load. I have to remove all my UI. It's not my favorite, okay? It's doable, and that could be like a first world problem thing, but it's not my fave. But you can see I have essentially the same setup. Let me go ahead and hide my webcam. That way you can get a full view. I have my brush selector, which is going to give me all of my categories, right? And then it's going to give me my brushes in the category as we have them right here. So blenders, oils, bravura, right? So we have this. We bring this up over here. We're doing this. We're going between here and here. Very cool. Let's do that. Oil dabber. So yeah, there's a lot that I really like about the brush engine, but that's a whole different video. In fact, we have a few videos about that. But this one's about the layout, to where we have all of our brush categories. Then we have this right here. Then over here, once again, wouldn't you know it, we have our color selector right here. We have some basic swatches. We have a channels layer and stuff. My layers panel is here. And then the general brush controls. So this one I normally have closed, but it reopens every time that I kind of reopen the program. But you can see that it is as kind of close as I can get it to that Photoshop layout, to where I have that. I have my layers panel right here. Not a lot to talk about on this, simply to be fair, because I don't use it a lot anymore. So once again, you can have your brush selector. You can have it set up. Do you want the bar or do you want the full view of the panel? So like if we close that panel, but like here we kept the bar, brush selector, if I want to do full view panel, which I do like because it gives me the thumbnail and also the categories. But then if I come over to brush selector and I hide the bar, that one up top here is gone now. But we just kind of keep this right here. If we go over to like our toolbox, our command bar, we can do file edit if we want to do any of that stuff. If the canvas, photo art, if you're doing like reference images or something, your brushes control panel, we can have all of these set up. So the dab preview, the brush shape, the media, the brush collaboration. So a lot of that's going to be over here for your general brush controls. Yeah, media panel. So if you have different stuff you want to import, you can do that. But like reference images, layers. So if we get the navigator, we can put the navigator here and see how it kind of went on top of everything else without, it kind of remembered that it was over here somewhere, but it didn't know where. See, and it won't dock. Oddly enough, it won't dock under stuff. It just goes over top of it. So if I move this, and I move this, and then this can dock there, and then can I move these that snaps there, but then there's no way to drag both of them at the same time. You think there would be from the up top here, or if you do like navigator here, see it's its own thing. That goes down here somewhere. Okay, and then the layers. See, layers does it fine. So yeah, it's a little clunky. A little I think they got like, and this is my opinion, I could be talking out of my butt, but it seems like they kind of got into Arrested Development around 2019. It seems like they saw what other painting programs are doing. Oh, I guess people like to dock things. I guess people like to put them in a certain order. I guess people like that. So we should probably try to do it. Then they do it, but it's a little clunkier. The stuff doesn't fit quite right. It's almost like you can build a Lego set, but if the Legos aren't quite the same color, or it's not, it feels a little off. And this isn't me like hating on Corel Painter. Well, maybe it might be. I don't know. It's just, I'll put it this way. I use this program less because getting it set up to feel like another paint program is arduous for no real reason. Okay. Corel Painter is its own thing. If you are into Corel Painter, hell, you could make, if you love Corel Painter and you kind of grew up with it, it's kind of your go-to, you've always used it, it's what you know, it's what you love, feel free to make your other programs like Clip Studio or Rebelle or Krita or whatever feel like this. Open up those different brush menus, those panels, those, the different mixers and color selectors and all that stuff, and make it mimic the layout of your Corel Painter. Totally fair. This whole exercise and this whole video is really about finding the workflow that works best for you and then mimicking that exact same workflow in every painting program that you possibly can. Because it's going to make the learning curve so much easier, right? So much easier. So yeah, this is my quote unquote Photoshop layout for Corel Painter, but you can still see how drastically different it looks. Like you can still see, hey, it does have the navigator, does have the color wheel, does have the layers panel, does have your brushes, has that all right there. It's just, it takes up more real estate. You can, pardon me, you can still come in and change a lot of these things, but there's so much everywhere that it gets a little cumbersome. And I know you could probably feel that way with a lot of different painting programs. So my advice is to streamline. Get everything as minimalistic as you possibly can. What are your essentials? What do I need to have? I need to have my color wheel. I need to have my layers panel. I need to have my brush selection, like the category tool. I need that stuff. So how do I get it to where I normally put it? That should be your overall goal. Okay. So this was Painter, I think. Just for fun, I'll show you a Sketchbook real quick as part of this. Let me minimize. I'll just keep these in the same category. This is what Sketchbook looks like. Sorry guys, this is what Sketchbook looks like. Like you can't really, there's not a, oh, go and change, like, oh, I'm going to do default layout, but I'm going to go to like, the layer editor, color editor, Copic. This is just how this, this is how it works. Yeah, Sketchbook. Sketchbook, they stopped making Sketchbook. God, how long ago? When was this? 2019. So yeah, I have version 8.7.1. Yeah, 2019, November 12th. Was the last update, and then it's kind of done. But this one's not part of the video really, because you can't really change this, right? I love Sketchbook. It's fun. It's cool. Has a lot of great brushes. It has a lot of very nice functionality. However, you can't really change it. So it's not part of this one. But I'll use that for specific reasons. But that's really it. So let's do a quick wrap up. I'm gonna go do the outro a little bit, and then we'll call it a video. Woo! And that is a wrap, my friends. thank you for your patience on this one. Like I said, if you have questions about any of these type of layouts or kind of what my mentality is while making these, let me know in the comments. I'll be more than happy to help. Also, you can join up our Discord. I'm going to make that kind of open and free to everybody. It used to just be only for patrons, but I'm going to open up to everybody now. You can, do the Patreon if you want. It's only $1 a month. I'm going to be doing a lot more updating on that. I've been kind of neglecting it, but you already have like 40 or 50 posts. There's free brush packs. There's all sorts of stuff up there, complimentary stuff up on the Patreon. If you're interested, like I said, it's only $1 a month. It's never going to raise in the price or anything, but it gets everything. It gets PSD files and works in progress and all that. But more importantly, this is a video to kind of help you transition from one painting program to the next. Now, a lot of people are leaving Adobe like en masse, which I approve of. All their subscription shenanigans, all that stuff, I'm just not a big fan of. That's actually why I only have Adobe Photoshop CS6. That was the last version before they went to the Creative Cloud infrastructure. Now, I had a copy of CS6 because of college. I was enrolled in graphic design school, and we got a book that had Photoshop CS6 and our actual license and stuff. So that's how I have my version. You can also look on eBay and all that stuff. There's some older versions of that. Now, it is in demand because it's the last true, like, buy it and own it version of Adobe Photoshop. But let's say you're jumping from Photoshop to something else. What you want to do is you want to try your best to mimic that workflow into your new program. It's going to make that transition that much easier. That's it, guys. That's going to be one of your biggest obstacles that you go to, is learning these new things. But if you mimic the old stuff that you're already used to, it's going to really ease that transition period. And then you're going to get to the fun stuff more quickly. What are the differences in these different painting programs? Well, if I have my layout and my UI set up kind of exactly the same, now your time can be spent going and experimenting with the stuff that makes each one of these unique painting programs so much fun to use. So that's my recommendations. Like I said, I have way too many painting programs installed. In fact, there's some I didn't even cover in this video, like the Affinity Photo, but that one almost is set up exactly like Photoshop anyway, so there's not much to talk about. It's literally kind of a Photoshop clone. So yeah, there's a few more, that I could have looked at. But like I said, I don't use like GIMP. I don't use that type of stuff. But all the ones that I showed here, hopefully it kind of brought you on board. It showed you how I think about it. I have everything kind of in the same place, and that's what I recommend for you. But yeah, have fun. Go out there, make cool art. Dig into these painting programs. There's so much to love about so many of them. And that's part of the joy about being a digital artist, is you can jump between your toolboxes. You can jump between this program to this program, export out from Krita, take it into Rebelle, do the nice painterly strokes, import that back into Clip Studio, make that part of your comics panel, export that out to Photoshop, put that on, what I mean? Like, you can ping pong back and forth, which is what I do often. But to make that easier, make sure all of your programs feel and look as similar as possible. So that's my pro tip. Hope you guys found this video helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think. What's your go-to? Do you have your favorite? Is Krita your go-to and you make everything feel like Krita? Or is it like Clip Studio? Let me know. I'm always interested in knowing everybody else's process. It's so much fun to kind of see the ebb and flow and how that works together. But that's my time. You guys have been fantastic as always, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.